Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Access Minnesota brings you the newsmakers and the stories that shape our everyday lives, with analysis from University of Minnesota faculty experts. Now, here's Jim Dubois.
In 1974, the oral historian Studs Terkel published a collection of interviews with working Americans. The book was titled Working. People talk about what they do all day and how they feel about what they do. From young to old, rich to poor, from farmers to receptionists to company presidents, Terkel's book demonstrates the central role occupations play in our lives and how mundane everyday tasks characterize who we are as individuals and as a society. Now, 40 years after the book was first published, the University of Minnesota Theater Department explores the themes of working in a musical. We'll talk to the play's co-directors, Lisa Channer and Samantha Johns, about how students at the U have responded to Terkel's work and how the play evolved to make working in the 1970s relevant for today. Lisa Channer and Samantha Johns are the co-directors of the play Working. It's a musical presented by the University of Minnesota Department of Theater, Arts, and Dance. The play runs through November 9th. Lisa, Samantha, welcome to Access Minnesota.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Working is based on the 1974 book by the oral historian Studs Terkel. The book collects a wide swath of workers' stories from a variety of occupations and socioeconomic statuses. How does the musical, first performed in 1977, adapt these oral histories into theater?
It's a pretty straightforward documentary theater musical in that what they did when they adapted it in '77 is really took what people actually said in their interviews, edited it down for size, a little bit for content, and then asked, I think it's 4 different composers to compose songs about some of these people. So for example, James Taylor wrote the song Millwork based on the words that came out of the mouth of a mill worker. So there's a monologue by the mill worker and then she sings a song. So it's kind of a montage, collage approach. I would say that's probably the easiest way. It's straight up monologues and songs for the most part.
We've seen a lot of changes in the job market since 1974 when the book was written. Technological changes, more robotics, elimination of a lot of jobs that at one point in this country paid quite well. We've also seen many jobs moving overseas. How did you make this musical relevant for today's working world?
Good question. They actually updated the show in 2002.
I thought it was just
2000. And they kind of did that a little bit. And that's the version of the script that we're basing, that our show is coming from. And so they've taken out the old school plug-in receptionist, and instead it is now a communications tech support.
Overseas probably. So, and cubicle workers have been added and, things like that. I think even the 2000 version now is somewhat dated.
It's dated for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. It's dated because some of the occupations are updated, but the economy is different in a way since 2000, and the way that people, I think, respond and relate to economy is different, and also the politics of said economy and politics of said jobs. And so what maybe once would be okay or normal or standard is shifted, and it's only 14 years. Or it is 14.
Also, when they updated it in 2000, they didn't cut songs like Millwork and Clean and Woman, and they kept the big numbers, which meant you kept jobs, even though Americans are less and less doing millwork. The millwork is being done in China and other countries, and that is not addressed in the script, at all. Outsourcing is not addressed. Occupy Wall Street, stuff that happened with awareness of CEO salaries, that kind of stuff is not addressed. So the show is still fairly, it's a little bit of a time capsule in that way. Our production is a little different in the ways that we've addressed it. We've tried to wrestle with some of those very contemporary of the moment issues, but the script itself, I would say, doesn't. Is that accurate, would you say?
That's so accurate.
Yeah.
Lisa and Samantha, how did you two come together as co-directors of the play?
Love. Let's see, how did we? I think I'm a professor in the department, and I often direct in the main stage season because I'm the directing faculty here. And when they asked me to consider working, because we wanted to do a musical and we wanted to do something relevant that was manageable under the strictures of our departmental season, I said, okay, but I want to do it in a fresher way that's going to speak to our young students. They don't know anything about work yet, actually. And some of them have worked a lot of jobs already, so they know something about work. They don't know what it means to be a 45-year-old or a 50 or a 60-year-old. You know, there's no way they can. They don't know. So I wanted to make sure that we were honest about that and made a show and a process that would give them a fresh contemporary experience. And Sam is an amazing young director in the Twin Cities. Not young, I guess, up and coming. I don't know what to call you.
You
emerging.
can call me whatever you want.
She's just Sam.
She probably likes to hear that she's a young director.
She
too.
is. Well, she's just who she is. But she does a lot of work that's performance-based and fresh and exciting. And so I went to her, and plus we've wanted to work together. We've known each other since I got to the Twin Cities 7 years ago and followed each other's work and our friends. So I was like, want to hang out with me and make a show? We'll finally get to work together and you can come and be with my students. And that's my side of the story.
That's a good side of the story. Yeah.
And then it was just like, we just started talking about it. And then we decided we had a lot of similar ideas. We wrestled with the script for quite a while on how to approach it. We spent many months really struggling and hit upon some ideas that felt right.
Well, tell us more about the characters in the play. How do they represent the people in Turkle's book, and how do the characters in different occupations and social classes interact with one another?
They don't.
They don't.
There's
Which
no
is sad.
interaction between, in the book, in the musical, there's no interaction. It's isolated stories. There's the mill worker, she tells her story to the audience, and then she sings a song. And then the cleaning woman comes out and tells her story. You know, that's the way the structure of the piece is set up. Ours is a little different. We've built, as all directors do, our own world of like connective tissue that connects scenes together. And that's really what directors do. And our world is quite full. It has a lot going on.
It has a bunk bed.
Yeah, so we've added a layer of life to the story, because when we were first thinking about approaching this, we said, all right, what's interesting to us is how the mill worker also has kids. Many, many of the interviews, and even the stuff that made it into the play, are talking about the reason they work is for their kids and their family, so that they can have a life with the people they love. And we wanted to point to that more. The thing that's at the center of human existence, not this peripheral idea of what we do for a living. So we didn't want to negate what they do for a living. That was important, of course, that's what it's about. But we wanted to layer in humanity. So we've added children to the show. There are 3 real live children who are about between 9 and 12 years old.
I think that was our best idea.
It's a great idea. It's really moving, and so now instead of the steel worker, the sort of narrative guy, this guy named Mike, instead of him telling us all about his job while he's at his job, which is how it's often staged, like I'm going to pretend I'm lifting steel while I tell you about lifting steel, we have him actually preparing breakfast for his kids and telling us about his job, because that's how most people live and exist, right? So that's threaded through the kids move through everybody's stories. And now the company itself also is a little community of people that thread through each other's stories. There's a whole world of, we call them the paper pushers. We've created a kind of bureaucracy of paper moving around. So there's people with endless tasks of moving from up here at a cubicle down through the space and up. And there's a shredder. We shred paper into big piles of useless paper. So we've added our own context, I guess. But the show itself, I would say they're very isolated.
How does the character's job in the play inform who that character is?
Ask again.
I'll rephrase that.
Do their jobs define
Do their
them?
jobs define them as a human being? Does the job define their character?
In the text, I would say it does. And we worked against that. Would you agree?
I think in Stud's book, how they describe their job has, in a way, a very separate idea as to who they are, sometimes. I think that the musical has a lot of assumptions. For example, there's a prostitute that that is interviewed, and when they turn it into, it's very poor me, poor me. But if you read the text in Stud's book, she's like, this is a great job. I'm really empowered, I make a lot of money, and I'm my own boss. She says these words so clearly, and a lot more, and
about
words.
American womanhood in general, she speaks
Yeah,
quite a bit.
and so I think that there's a false opinion. There's a lot of stereotypes in a way placed on because you want characters to have a diversity in a musical. You can't have everyone be exactly a thing. So then I think they stretch some extremes and
And you simplify.
And simplify, yes.
So and I think we've tried to kind of add a little more yeast to each of the characters so that they can be more complicated. But I would say, they are defined by their jobs in the text that made it into the musical.
When Access Minnesota continues, the play's co-directors Lisa Channer and Samantha Johns explain how the musical sets a different tone from Studs Terkel's book, published 40 years ago.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages. You're watching Access Minnesota. Here's Jim Dubois.
Here's more on Working, a musical now on stage at the University of Minnesota's Rarig Center. Well, tell us more about the music in the play. What styles of music were incorporated in this production?
There's musical theater style, number one.
Yes.
That is its own style and repertoire. And then there's some songs that have a jazzier feel. I would say The Cleaning Women is a little jazzy. There's
Ballads.
There's ballads. There's giant group choral numbers. I don't know.
It is eclectic and yet not super, because it's so many different composers, it's not just one voice, which is different than a lot of musicals. Even though Rodgers and Hart might have a lot of songs they wrote for one show that are different, it's still Rodgers and Hart. And in this you have really diverse styles. So you're definitely, if you come to see the show, you're going to hear stuff ranging from kind of like a Motown sound to James Taylor singing a ballad to you, if that helps, to huge, really big kind of musical, rich harmonies. And plus our cast it's made for 6 people, this version, and we are doing it with 20. So the voices are 23 because there's 3 children.
Why do you think the play was written as a musical? How does the music contribute to the retelling of the workers' stories?
I don't think it does, kind of. I kind of don't think it was a great choice, actually. I think Stud's book is amazing. I think the book Working by Studs Terkel is amazing, and it does something really wonderful. I think adapting it into a musical does a very different thing to it. It's not the same thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just not the book. And it's I think Stud's book, in a way, gives you information, and it allows you to have your own opinion. You can celebrate, you can feel for a worker, you can not agree with what someone's saying in some way. And when you turn something into a musical, I think there is an entertainment value that has to be considered when it's theater and when it's a musical. And when it was written, I think the book lost some of its juice, actually, because it was adapted into a musical, and it has a different kind of juice.
Yeah,
maybe.
Because what happens with a song, and we talk about this with our students, right, is the reason a character suddenly stops talking and starts singing is because feelings are too strong to be covered merely with words. That's why musicals moved us, right? Suddenly, what I'm feeling and want to communicate to you, mere words don't work. They jump out of their container and I need to sing it. It's an emotional thing. It's the same reason characters suddenly start speaking in verse in Shakespeare from prose. So I think there is something, like, I think Sam hit the nail on the head with that a musical is inherently manipulative and sentimental because it attaches our emotional self. So now you have a point of view that's dictated by the sound that you're experiencing. You know what I mean? So whereas the book itself, it's more political, it's more contradictory. Characters are, of course, like all humans, are complicated. And when you simplify it and make it shorter and neater and cleaner and emotionally impactful that you do with a musical, you erase some of the complexity. Our production, I think, because of our cast being the age they are and the kind of ways we're addressing it, perhaps brings some of the complexity back. but it's still a musical.
Yeah.
You know, so
I
that's,
think the
guess.
book also, you can like sense its time signature. You can understand where it lives in history. You can see America 1974 very clearly in it. And I think when adapting it to a musical, it shifts in a way, and then readapting it, it shifts, but you still have words you're pulling from a different era, but you're trying to modernize them, and you can feel the grind of it, maybe. You can feel that it doesn't fit quite right.
Yeah, it's getting yanked into another place, not necessarily an organic place. So it sounds like we're saying that it's a terrible musical. I don't think that's what we mean.
Not a terrible musical.
No, it's actually,
He asked us to compare it with the book, so I did. I said, not
you
the
did
book.
great.
Yeah.
You did great. I think I'm speaking of myself. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure that it isn't one of the great American musicals. What's exciting about it is it celebrates the person that never gets celebrated. It celebrates just the average human being in America. It's like if Willy Loman made a musical, you know, we'd get to hear about the guy that's the salesman all his life. And we get to really ponder, do we like the way that we treat humans? Do we feel that America's doing it right? When you hear the way people feel about what they do all day long, you kind of go, is this how we want lives to be spent? In often drudgery, you know, it feels futile. And there's these bosses that are making bazillions times more, you know. So I think it brings up a lot of things if you want to think about it.
The University of Minnesota's theater production Working features student actors, many of whom have yet to embark upon a career themselves. When Access Minnesota returns, we'll discuss how the students prepared for their roles and their responses to Studs Terkel's book.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages. You're watching Access Minnesota. Here's Jim Dubois.
For good or for bad, what you do for a living can define who you are. Here's more of our conversation on jobs and identity with the co-directors of the play Working. Did the students performing in the play read Terkel's book, and if so, what were some of their reactions?
They read the sections that reply to their characters, right?
Yeah, some of them, I don't know where my copy is. I had a copy that was sitting on the stage management cart, and it's gotten shuffled around a little. So I think some of them have investigated. I know like Jacob is really interested in it. He's read a bunch of it. And our sound designer actually has liked reading it a lot. But they've read where the characters pull from, you know.
The real human, yeah. So if the one that, let's say the woman that plays Maggie, the mill worker, she has a scene.
Grace.
I'm sorry, Grace, right, Maggie's the cleaning. Yeah. So Grace, the mill worker, she went back and read the actual full interview with Terkel and the mill working woman, which is pages and pages. And what she says on stage is a couple paragraphs. So she wanted to understand the fullness of that character.
And some of them have sound bites too. We have the actual sound bites from the actual recorded interviews.
Yeah.
Like the housewife one.
Excuse me, yes.
So they've heard some of those.
The real voice of the real person.
Yeah.
Radio.
And some of them can't actually find their words in the Terkel's book because, for example, there's a character of like a project manager or a secretary, and what they've done in the adaptation is they've pulled 4 different interviews from Terkel's original book and turned it into one person.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's a thing.
So there was some detective work for them, going back and finding all the threads. And they found it fascinating. I guess your question was, what have they said? I think they are thinking for the first time about work, some of them.
Is it still relevant for them, though? That was 40 years ago. Did they find relevancy in these stories that in a world that's changed a great deal in the last 40 years?
Yes, I think so.
I think so too. They talked a lot about their families, their parents and their grandparents. And right, I mean, and we even had them interview a relative. That was our audition, actually. They had to tell a story about someone in their family's first job. And that's what we asked them to do for their audition. So right away, we were asking them to think very personally about work and what they inherited, work ethics. We've talked about class quite a bit. What class do they each come from? The taboo in America, right, that we don't have class. But it became clear that of the 20-person cast, most came from kind of a middle-class background, but there were a few that came from working class or very poor, and a couple that came from very wealthy. And when we just sort of started to talk about that, they kind of looked around and realized, oh, we never talk about this. You know, what kind of jobs were they watching their family go off to do versus their friends that were in high income, just totally different backgrounds.
Yeah, we've moved into new territory of dialogue, and I think sometimes we scare them in a way.
Yeah.
Like talking about, because when you have a 19-year-old on stage and they're reading the words of a 50-year-old person who's had a job for most of their life, they can't quite harness it in a way, or they don't initially harness it. And then so it's like, guys, let's think about what it means for the rest of your life to go do one thing and they're like, what? You know, we did a whole, I think we scared some of them.
Ask them to think
We
pretty
asked
hard.
them to think.
Yep.
Well, the economy has recovered, at least for now, from the Great Recession, but unemployment for college graduates still remains quite high. Does this play and perhaps the individual characters in the play address some of the concerns that the actors have about their future prospects for employment?
I feel like one of the things we've done with this show is interrogate entirely whether we even like the idea of jobs as a way of distributing need. We're asking them to peel away a huge layer of thought. So we're not talking about what are you going to do to go out and get a job. I think what we're saying is, can you help make a world that lets you explore the human spirit and live a decent life and not have to go and do something that makes someone else rich, basically.
Yes.
So it's kind of, you know, I don't think we haven't been assuming that jobs is necessarily the best thing. However, we've all had them, and jobs are part of our lives. So it does come up sometimes. And several of our cast members work full time, even though they're students. So that's been interesting. Like, they've had conflicts where they can't be here because they have to go to a job. And normally in the theater, you say, look, you didn't give us that conflict in the beginning, so you're going to have to go and tell you have to be here. You can't skip. But there was one young woman who said, you know, if I don't go in, I'm going to get fired. And we looked at each other, and I was like, after all we've talked about on this show, I can't ask her to go and get fired. I can't do it. So she's going to sacrifice some rehearsal time where she'd much rather be. And we're going to say, go do your job, get it done, you know? So it's a lot about talking about what do you do to make the money that allows you to live so that you can do all the things you want to do. And as theater kids, their whole life is going to be about that, because America doesn't invest in the arts. So you always do something else.
What do you hope folks attending the play will take away with them?
Okay, first of all, we do hope they have a really good time.
Yeah. It's fun.
It's really fun.
It is. Lisa and I are silly as well as
We're
serious.
really super silly. They're gonna we hope they take away, they're gonna be humming some songs. They're in my head
Every morning.
every day.
This morning it was the waitress song.
Yeah, me too. It was the waitress song this morning. So they're gonna be humming some great songs. They're gonna hear an amazing band play. They're gonna hear amazing singers. And they're also gonna maybe think a little bit. They're gonna maybe be wondering, what's going on? Oh my God, everything's being questioned and affirmed at the same time, and I don't know what to make of that, and I'm finding it exciting to being asked to think about a few things at the same time.
The performers are college students, and they have so much energy
Oh my
and life.
gosh.
There's a kind of lack of jadedness to them. So
They're
they're so
wonderful.
fresh. And what they're saying is it spans life. So we have like a 19-year-old is the youngest character in the play, and it goes up to,
A
I don't know.
retiree, Joe, in his 70s.
I don't know how old Joe is, 70. So the idea that
But they're all
there's
coming
going
through
to be a
19-year-old mouth.
19-year-old saying all of these, it's a really fun way to, and actually,
Yeah.
even little Milo.
Oh yeah, we have children speaking.
We have children
We have there's one very adult character that we have a child playing on purpose. So there's words coming out of a little tiny mouth that should be coming out of a much older mouth. And that just makes you hear those words in a different way.
Yes. You're going to see really pretty things. You're going to
it's
see really beautiful
beautiful.
pictures and a lot of energy. And
There's a whole video and media
I
element.
think we kind of go like, we kind of are like, come on, wake up a little bit to the
isn't it
audience.
fun?
Yeah.
Isn't it fun to be awake?
That's what we do a little.
That's what we
maybe.
do,
Or maybe
yeah.
we're trying to do. No, we do it. And
They're gonna have a really good time. They should come and have fun. It's really a lovely piece.
it is actually.
It really is. It's beautiful.
We've been teching this week, so it's like we're just seeing it. We're falling in love with it.
All
you know, you
over
kind of
again.
are like, what did we do before you get into tech? Like, this is a mess.
And
or
now we
something.
have all these, the lights are extraordinary. Our MFA students are so talented. And so yes, they'll have a beautiful experience.
Lisa Channer and Samantha Johns are the co-director of the play Working. It's a musical presented by the University of Minnesota Department of Theater Arts and Dance. The play runs through November 9th. Lisa, Sam, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all for this month's edition of Access Minnesota. We'll see you again next month. Thanks for watching.
Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Join us again next week as we bring you the newsmakers and stories that shape our everyday lives. Access Minnesota is produced by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association in cooperation with the University of Minnesota's College of Liberal Arts.